It's been 7 years since I last walked home alone at night. Even now, when I hear footsteps behind me, my heart races like I'm back on that dimly lit street again. The one where a man stood perfectly still beneath a streetlight, watching me every single night. In 2018, I was 21 and had just moved out of my parents' house in Pennsylvania for college. I lived in a small, quiet town called Westbridge, safe, boring, and mostly filled with elderly neighbors who waved when I took out the trash. My apartment was a one-bedroom basement unit behind a row of duplexes. Cheap, quiet, and a 15-minute walk from campus. At first, it was perfect. I was proud of myself, working nights at a cafe, studying criminology, and finally independent. The street I took home every night was called Hillview Drive, a narrow road that sloped downward into my neighborhood. It wasn't dangerous, just eerie. The kind of suburban silence where even the wind feels too loud. There was one streetlight flickering near an empty lot, and for some reason, that's the image I remember most vividly. That soft, buzzing light against the dark. It started on a Thursday. I had a late shift that ended around 11:30 p.m. As I was walking home, earbuds in, I noticed someone standing under that streetlight. A tall silhouette, motionless. I slowed down, tugged one earbud out, and squinted. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, facing the road. I brushed it off, maybe a neighbor, someone waiting for a ride. But as I passed, I felt that heavy, electric feeling of being watched. I didn't turn around. Over the next few nights, he was there again. Always in the same spot, same time, never moving. The first time I told my roommate, she joked, maybe he's practicing mindfulness. But after the fourth night, I started taking alternate routes. Longer, darker, but at least not past him. Then, one Friday, I was late closing the cafe. I got home after midnight. As I turned the corner onto Hillview Drive, I froze. He was closer. Not under the streetlight anymore, but a few steps forward, half in shadow, still facing the road. I sprinted the last block home, slammed the door, and locked it. My hands were shaking so bad that I dropped my keys twice. I checked the windows, nothing. The night was still. 2 nights later, I woke up at 3:12 a.m. to a soft scraping sound outside my bedroom window. My blinds were closed, but the sound was slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging against the glass. I froze, listening. It stopped. I called my friend Ashley, whispering, "There's someone outside." She told me to call the cops, but I was terrified they'd think I was paranoid. I peeked through a tiny gap in the blinds. There he was, standing less than 10 feet away, looking straight at my window. The faint glow from the streetlight behind him outlined his face just enough, pale, thin, and smiling. I screamed. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. They found footprints in the damp grass, size 11 boots, leading toward the tree line behind my building. They told me to keep my windows locked and report if it happened again. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. I started sleeping again, telling myself it was over. Then, one morning, I found something taped to my door. A small, folded note. Inside, in shaky handwriting, "You look beautiful when you're scared." I moved out the next day. My parents helped me find a place across town. The police took the note, but nothing ever came of it. They said it could have been a prank. 3 months later, another girl from my old street went missing. Her name was Mariah. She was last seen walking home after her cafe shift, down Hillview Drive. They found her phone in that empty lot beneath the streetlight. To this day, when I drive past that road, the lamp still flickers, and for a split second, I always think I see someone standing there, waiting.
I used to believe that neighbors were just people who happened to live nearby. Then I met the woman in 4B, and I learned that sometimes you can share a wall with someone who's quietly losing their mind, and you'll never know until it's too late. In 2021, I lived in a mid-rise apartment building just outside Chicago. I had just turned 30 and was trying to rebuild my life after a messy breakup. The building wasn't fancy. Thin walls, buzzing lights, the constant hum of an old elevator. But the rent was cheap, and the neighborhood was quiet enough. My apartment was on the 5th floor, 5A. Right below me was a woman named Marissa in 4B. I didn't see her often, but I heard her constantly. The faint sounds of her TV through the floor, late-night pacing, sometimes muffled crying. I figured she was just going through something, a breakup maybe, like me. The first time I met her face-to-face was a Sunday afternoon in the laundry room. She was standing by the dryers, staring blankly at a pile of clothes she hadn't folded yet. She was in her mid-30s, with pale skin, messy hair tied up in a bun. When I said hello, she jumped, like I'd startled her. "Oh, sorry," I said. She blinked, then smiled faintly. "No, it's fine. I thought you were someone else." I didn't think much of it. We chatted for a bit. She told me she'd lived there almost 2 years, worked remotely, and didn't go out much. Her eyes darted around when we talked, like she was waiting for someone to appear behind me. Over the next month, I started hearing strange things at night. Not normal apartment sounds, odd things. Slow tapping from below my bed, a faint hum that stopped whenever I got up to check. One night, I woke up to what sounded like whispering, not from the hallway, but from beneath my floorboards. It got worse. One morning, I found a single Post-it note slipped under my door. It said, in shaky handwriting, "Do you hear it too?" I thought it was a prank, but the handwriting looked familiar. I'd seen it before on the labels in the laundry room. It was Marissa's. That night, I knocked on her door. It took almost a full minute before I heard movement. Then, the peephole went dark. She was looking out. "Marissa? Hey, it's me from upstairs." Silence. I started to walk away, but then I heard her whisper through the door. "Don't knock at night. He doesn't like that." I froze. "Who?" But she didn't answer. Just heavy breathing, then the sound of her locks clicking shut, one after another. About a week later, everything came to a head. It was around 2:40 a.m. I woke up to a loud thump below me, like something heavy hitting the floor. Then another, and another. Then, silence. I lay there holding my breath. After a minute, a sound started. A dragging noise. Slow, rhythmic, like furniture being pulled across the floor. I grabbed my phone and texted the building manager, then went downstairs. When I reached the 4th floor, the air was thick, like dust or burnt metal. The lights were flickering faintly. I knocked on 4B. No answer. Then I noticed something under the door.
dark streaks on the tile. I crouched down. It looked like something wet had seeped out. Not a spill, more like fluid. I backed away and called 911. The police came within 10 minutes. I watched from the hallway as they knocked, then forced the door open. The first officer stepped in and immediately shouted for backup. I never forgot the smell that came out. Copper, rot, and something chemical. They cleared the room, then escorted everyone out of the hallway. I caught a glimpse inside before they shut the door. The lights were off, except for a lamp knocked over in the corner. And there were drawings all over the walls, hundreds of them, black ink smeared in strange circular patterns. No one said anything at first. Then, one of the officers came out, pale-faced. He whispered to his partner, "There's nobody here. Nobody. No Marissa, no sign of a struggle, no forced entry, just the smell, the drawings, and a half-eaten meal left on the counter like she'd vanished mid-bite." For days, the building was crawling with cops. It wouldn't tell us much, but I overheard enough. They found a crawl space behind our kitchen wall, one that didn't show up on the blueprints. Inside were dozens of Polaroid photos of every tenant in the building, including me, in my bed, sleeping. They said the photos had been taken over the past 6 months. When they searched the storage units, they found a small folding ladder, tall enough to reach my balcony, but no trace of Marissa herself. The police eventually ruled it a missing person case, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear faint tapping from below, slow and deliberate. Last week, a new tenant moved into 4B, and last night, I found another post-it under my door. It just said, "He's still here."
Every town has a road people warn you about, a stretch of asphalt that locals avoid after dark. For me, that road was Route 19, cutting through the woods between Pittsburgh and Butler County. 3 of my friends disappeared there in 2016, and I'm the only one who ever came back. I grew up in western Pennsylvania, the kind of place where the air smells like pine and motor oil. Back then, my life was simple. High school, part-time mechanic work, long drives with friends when we had nothing better to do. Our group was tight. There was me, my best friend Aaron, his girlfriend Jess, and our quiet tag-along buddy Chris. We were all 20, restless and bored.
Route 19 was our shortcut between towns. 2 lanes, barely lit, lined with thick woods that seemed endless. Locals called it the Vanishing Mile because cars supposedly broke down there, phones died, and people swore they heard voices from the trees. We didn't buy into the stories. We were just kids looking for a thrill. It was the night of August 14th, 2016. Hot, humid, no moon. We just left a diner outside Pittsburgh around 11:30 p.m. Aaron was driving his old Chevy Impala, headlights cutting through fog like blades. Halfway down Route 19, the radio started crackling, static, then silence. Our phones dropped signal too. "Guess the stories were true," Chris muttered. Aaron laughed. "Yeah, sure. Maybe Bigfoot'll stop us for directions." About 10 minutes later, we saw something up ahead. A car was parked on the shoulder, hazards flashing weakly. It looked abandoned. Aaron slowed down.
Jess leaned forward. Maybe someone needs help. He pulled over despite my protest. The car was an old Honda Civic, dusty and coated in pollen. The driver's door was open, keys still dangling in the ignition. "Aaron, this feels wrong," I said. but he was already stepping out. The air smelled like wet leaves and metal. I remember that vividly. Metallic, sharp, like blood. We called out, but no one answered. Jess used her phone's flashlight to peek inside. The front seat had a half-empty coffee cup and a woman's purse on the floor. ID said Lauren Tate, age 27. Chris looked back toward the woods. You guys hear that? A faint rustling. Not wind. Footsteps. We turned toward the tree line, flashlight sweeping over the brush. Nothing. Just darkness so thick it swallowed the light. Aaron shrugged. Probably an animal, but his voice wavered.
We got back in the car, planning to call the cops once we hit the signal. Aaron started the engine, then froze, because the hazards on the abandoned car suddenly turned off. No one touched them. We stared, waiting. 10 seconds later, the rear lights blinked once, a short flash, and the engine of our car died. Everything went dark. No headlights, no dashboard glow, nothing. Only the deep, suffocating dark of the woods pressed against the windows. Aaron tried the key again. Click, click, silence. Jess started crying softly. Chris whispered, I see something. Out on the road, just beyond the range of the dying hazard light, a figure stood. Tall, still, facing us.
We couldn't make out any details, just the outline. It didn't move. Get us out of here, man, I hissed. Aaron turned the key again, desperate. The car coughed, then roared to life. Headlights flicked on, and the road ahead was empty. The figure was gone. We tore down Route 19, doing nearly 90. The road twisted and curved, but when we reached the first intersection, it wasn't there. Just more trees. Wait, this isn't right, Aaron muttered. We've been driving 10 minutes. We should have hit the highway. But the mile markers weren't changing. Each one read the same number, 19.5. Jess screamed suddenly. Something was in the rear window. A face, pale, wide-eyed, pressed against the glass for a split second before vanishing. Aaron slammed the brakes. We skidded sideways, tires shrieking. When the car stopped, we were back in front of the same abandoned Civic. Same open door, same flickering hazard light. Chris bolted out before we could stop him, shouting into the woods. Aaron, it's looping! It's the same mile!
We ran after him, flashlights cutting through fog. We found his phone first, screen cracked, flashlight still on, lying in the dirt. Then his shoe. We never found Chris. Aaron called the cops from the next town over once we finally got a signal. They searched for 3 days. Nothing. The Civic was still there, but the woman who owned it, Lauren Tate, had been reported missing 2 weeks earlier. The police dismissed our story as panic and a coincidence. They said maybe we got lost in the fog. But Aaron changed after that night. Quit his job, stopped driving altogether. Jess left town within a month. In 2020, I drove down Route 19 again for the first time. They'd widened parts of it, added new guardrails. But when I hit mile marker 19.5, my GPS glitched, froze for exactly 13 seconds, and the radio went dead. I slowed down. There, on the shoulder, was another car. Hazards flashing.
I didn't stop this time. A few days later, I searched the local news out of curiosity. A 29-year-old man had gone missing that same night, last seen driving home from Butler. His car was found abandoned on Route 19, mile marker 19.5. Now, whenever I pass that stretch of road, I glance at the shoulder, and every time, for just a moment, I see a figure standing there, always watching, always waiting for the next car to stop.
Real horror doesn't always come from the supernatural. Sometimes it's a stranger standing too long under a streetlight, a neighbor whose life quietly unravels behind thin walls, or a familiar road that swallows people whole. These stories remind us that the world doesn't need monsters to be terrifying, only people, places, and moments we don't yet understand.